the story is real, or actually happened. WWF Grand Stage was a very obscure piece of wrestling history. In 1984, a year before WrestleMania took place, a special on-air event took place that basically a concept of what WrestleMania could be like. The event would take place on March 28th, 1984, a little over a year before WrestleMania. The would actually take place. The event was organized by WWF chairman Vince McMahon to conceptualize what it could be like. Since the event was unaired, it did not air on television or anywhere else. The event was seemingly lost to time, kept away in the WWE archive for almost 4 decades. Recently, however, something happened. It was found after almost 4 decades. Wanna know how? Keep Hello, folks. My name is David, and I'm a huge wrestling fan. I've been a mega huge fan of WWE for over 2 decades, and I've attended several WrestleMania events over the course of my lifetime, including WrestleMania X7, which, in my opinion, is and always will be my absolute favorite one out of all of them. The thing is, when it comes to pro wrestling, I will always love it. But as far as WrestleMania goes, I have one heck of a story to tell all of you. It's about the days before WrestleMania and a very rare and obscure concept event that actually took place. Enter WWF Grand Stage. Little has been known about the event for a very long time, due to no info on it existing anywhere online for decades. In fact, it might as well be the rarest WWE event ever. So, a bit of background. In 1984, Vince McMahon and a few other WWF board members conceptualized WrestleMania and slated it for the next year, 1985. And they were bouncing around ideas and whatnot as to what WrestleMania could be like. And as such, to help set the standard for what it could be like, the WWF held a very rare in ring promotional event called Grand Stage, the working title for what would become WrestleMania. Instead of tickets or anything, it was instead free admittance to attend. Of course, you had to be at least over the age of 18 or had a parent or guardian by your side. The event was scheduled to be held in an unknown venue of which no one actually knows the name of anymore. I even talked to the few people that have allegedly went to Grand Stage recently. They said they were unsure of the name, but they know for a fact that it was a venue in New York City that was no longer in operation. The event was to be scheduled on March 28th, 1984 at roughly 2:30 in the afternoon. Pretty standard for an event like this. Folklore stated that the event did not go according to plan, and something happened on that day and that the WWE refuses to talk about it. Every time it is brought up by anyone, the WWE shrugs it off like it never happened. In fact, it nearly tarnished the reputation of the WWF at the time, and almost caused the entire company to go under. The thing is, something happened at Grand Stage that they didn't want to discuss. Well, now the cat's out of the bag, if you will, because I just found the event. Let's just say I never felt the same after I saw it. The story goes like this. In the summer, I was visiting a friend in Ohio. Pretty nice guy. He was also as big of a wrestling nerd as I was, maybe even bigger. The guy had and probably still has multiple connections with multiple different people. He even had, maybe still has, a contact with someone from the UK, quite possibly somewhere in London. My friend would often talk about what happened at the recent episode of Raw or SmackDown constantly. I mean, I talked about it too, but not that much. You might as well be a bigger nerd than me when it comes to that. One day, one of his contacts had stated that he had gotten hold of something extremely rare, a very rare DVD, in fact. He stated that it contained some lost event that the WWE held back in the day, and he was wondering if we were interested in watching it. My friend wasn't very interested, but I was. It was kind of strange to see him not be interested in something wrestling related. Either way, I definitely was. His contact was in Arizona, so it took a bit for the DVD to actually arrive at my friend's house. But when it got there, trust me, I was so excited to see some lost WWE media would finally recover for quite possibly the whole world to see. I was as stoked as I can be. The DVD cover was nearly blank. The cover of the background was the cover was jet black. I turned the cover around and find the old WWF logo from 1982 imprinted on the front. I saw some text underneath it. WWF Grand Stage, March 28th, 1984, full event. I had no idea what I was in store for. This right here was obviously in the working title for WrestleMania, and I knew it right then and there. I was excited. I had absolutely no idea an event like this ever took place. Well, it's because it was never aired. You get the idea. I was I was very excited to see what this WrestleMania prototype would look like and be featured in it. My friend even got curious. As such, we put the DVD in the DVD player and began to watch it. It was an early version of the WWF's classic signature intro from 1985 was first shown, the recognized symbol of excellence in the sports entertainment. The statement literally defined a generation. It then cut to a shot of the venue the event was being held at. It looked like a pretty small venue, and boy, it showed up. Showed. It then fades into a slideshow of various WWF wrestlers at the time. But something was off about this. Some wrestling pictures were fine, but others had marks on the top of them. But spooky, and most notably, the wrestlers had these marks on them where people had seen before. It was super strange and spooky to see wrestlers I had never heard of be in this event, let alone be suspiciously marked as if it was intentional in some way. And then the logo for Grand Stage faded in. It definitely looked like an early version of the WrestleMania logo, right down to the front. And after all that, we finally get to see the inside of the venue. It was very dull, and didn't have a lot to offer. But hey, this was a concept event. It was obviously going to be like this. As the event started, Vince McMahon gave his opening remarks about the event in a pretty long statement to the attendees who were at the event. Hello to everyone who took time out of their days to come witness a spectacular sports spectacle of epic proportions. Welcome everyone to the grand stage. This event is a concept event for a pay-per-view we are currently working on here at the World Wrestling Federation. We will have more to share about it soon. Until then, here's what we believe our event will feel like when it happens next year. We are excited for you to see what we have in store for you tonight. Once again, thank y'all for coming and enjoy the show. The first match of the night was a typical one-on-one match. Two unstoppable giants, looking to cause as much pain to one another as possible. It was King Kong Bundy versus Andre the Giant, and it was nicknamed the Match of Two Giants. As described internally by WWF and WWE in various promos and news articles about the Grand Stage event at the time. You might be wondering about how I know about this. Well, one of my friends did. Picked up a lot of promotional material and news goes about the Grand Stage from old newspapers in 1984, most of them being stuff about reserving a seat and nothing else. The match went on as a normal WWF match did. The two giants traded blows at the start, and eventually Andre got the upper hand and started getting some major attacks on King Kong Bundy. The pure strength of Andre the Giant was something that had to be seen to be believed. He lifted King Kong Bundy, another gigantic wrestler at the time, with relative ease, multiple times. If he were still alive today, there is no doubt he would be able to pick up the most current WWE wrestlers up easily and not lose his footing even once. Near the middle of the match, Andre put King Kong Bundy into a submission hold. The crowd was very likely this was the end of the match. But alas, no. With incredible strength, King Kong Bundy not only managed to get back up out of the hold, but also lifted Andre on his head and dove him into the mat with a powerbomb. The crowd lost it, and King Kong Bundy was now ready to do whatever he pleased to Andre the Giant. He picked him up and threw him into the ropes, and then went for a clothesline, landing it successfully. In fact, he had the upper hand for a while, doing all sorts of things like repeated punches on Andre while he was on the floor, a jump on the top rope, into the iconic frog splash, and a whole host of other stuff. They wore out Andre so much that he was ready for the cover, so he lifted the giant's leg up with great strength, and the referee count. One, two, nope. Andre gets out of the cover, barely moving. The crowd went nuts. They just witnessed a giant take a beating from King Kong Bundy and still be able to fight. It took a while for Andre to get his footing, but Bundy made sure it wouldn't happen. He continued to attack Andre, and then went for another cover, only for Andre to break out of it at a 2 count. Like, in shock, wondering how in God's name he was
still even able to move, let alone fight. Once again, King Kong Bundy was determined to make sure that Andre the Giant did not get back his footing this time. Andre was once again struggling, but still being able to move in some form. Bundy taunted him and even told him, "This is the end, Mr. Giant." King Kong Bundy was looking to finish us off as he picked up Andre, where he would lift him on his head for a final blow. Imagine the surprise on his face when that didn't work out. Andre the Giant got into reversal and lifted himself over the giant. The crowd could not contain his excitement. He just reversed Bundy's attack. Now, Andre was back on his feet. Bundy looked at the giant completely stunned in disbelief. He's still able to fight? How? Bundy said under his breath. But nonetheless, King Kong Bundy was not looking to give up. Even though Andre the Giant was back on his feet, he still find a way to finish would find a way to finish him off. He was getting ready to kick Andre in the chest, but the giant picked his foot with ease, performing yet another reversal. Instead of King Kong Bundy drop kicking Andre, Andre drop kicked Bundy instead. Andre was back in control of the match, and the crowd was going wild. Andre was getting ready to finish off Bundy with a new set of attacks. Andre jumped from the top rope a few times, elbowed King Kong Bundy's right arm, and even threw him out of the ring, all the while performing unusual attacks. Bundy was immobilized, lying on the floor as the referee counted 10, down from 10. Andre the Giant was confident that this would be the end of the match, so he just taunted Bundy a lot. By sheer luck, King Kong Bundy went back into the ring, looking to quickly perform a spear on the giant. It didn't work in Bundy's favor, though, as Andre quickly dodged the attack. Therefore, Bundy was right back on the floor, just like how he was a few minutes ago. Andre was confident that this would be the end of the match, and therefore got ready to do a count on a King Kong Bundy, with a smile on his face. The referee got on the mat to perform another. Nope. Bundy's shoulder lifts up. The match continues. King Kong Bundy was tripping and wobbling all over the floor trying to get back up. It didn't work, and Andre lifts up Bundy and plows him into the mat. It was over for sure. One, two, three. Andre just won the match. He he may have took a severe beating during the match, but he pulled through, defeating King Kong Bundy at his own game. I was loving it, and they were super eager to see what the next match would bring to the table. So far, the impressions of the grand stage were very positive from the crowd. The second match started. With the crowd loving the first match between Andre the Giant King Kong Bundy, expectations were high for the second match, and soon our next wrestlers entered. The Iron Sheik will be taking on Wakanda. Wakanda? How have I never heard of this wrestler before? He doesn't show up anywhere on the official WWF 1984 roster either. The only way I even knew was the only one I even knew was the Iron Sheik. Maybe Wakanda was on the official roster beforehand, but was secretly and silently removed somewhat later on? Well, this next match would answer that question. When Wakanda made his entrance into this ring, he seemed off. Not like off in their personality, just completely off in general. Looked like he just went crazy, as he was turning his head constantly as it was his first time he ever entered a ring. According to some, this is not normal in Wakanda's usual behavior. He usually entered the ring as if he were some sort of being from another world. He even acted like one in his personality. On this specific day, on this specific night, in this specific event, Wakanda looked like he was just completely zooted out of his mind. He was super dazed and acted like he had no clue where he was even at. It seemed super odd for him to be acting this way. The Iron Sheik was even concerned about this. Wakanda looked completely out of his mind, and it was strange. Nevertheless, the match started with the usual bell ring. The Iron Sheik easily got the upper hand at the start of the match. Sooner or later, Wakanda definitely seemed like he was in a bad state. Wakanda tried to attack Sheep, but he was attacking nothing, like literally nothing. The crowd was super confused and concerned about what was happening. He was acting like the way he was. Like usual during the match, the Iron Sheik got in control of the match again and started to attack Wakanda. Usually Wakanda would try to fight back, but not even once did he try to do such a thing. It seems so weird and very unsettling. The match was over in about 4 minutes. This was the shortest match in WWF history at the time, and no, it didn't end in the usual manners. It was determined a no contest for the safety of both Sheik and Wakanda himself. We thought Wakanda's strange state was over, but then out of nowhere, Wakanda got up and started attacking nothing again. He thinks the match hasn't ended yet, and some people in the crowd started to wonder if Wakanda was hallucinating. Wakanda even jumped from the top rope, landing on the mat to hit nothing. Wakanda didn't know that. He was still completely lost and thought he was attacking Sheik, his opponent. Sooner or later, Wakanda screamed. He looked all over the arena at nothing, even jumped in the crowd to and scared the daylights out of people. He just completely lost his mind. The crowd was sure that Wakanda was at this point because he jumped in the crowd thinking that everyone was Sheik. He continued to scream for dear life as if it was his last days on Earth. His mind raced that he was about ready to go berserk. Just then, Wakanda fainted on the mat with a loud thud. Condition. He was completely out, not even moving an inch. The referee was checking on Wakanda's condition, and determined that he completely fainted. The paramedics arrived and escorted Wakanda out of the ring. People were wondering what just happened and why was he acting the way that he did. This was not normal behavior, and it was very worrisome for the crowd. The next match afterwards further strengthened the worry in the crowd. This is where things started to get completely crazy and not in a good way. The next match was already brought on with concern. The previous match did not end in a good way, so there was already concern inside the crowd. But still, the crowd looked sort of forward to it, hoping this was a weird coincidence. Rowdy Roddy Piper was going to be taking on Katus in a full-on TLC match. This was once again another unknown wrestler that did not show up on the roster at the time. This was starting to get very concerning to me, as if all the unknowns are having bad things happen to them. All the while, all the while, all the more known wrestlers were perfectly fine in their mental state. Just like the last wrestler, Kanos came into the ring completely dazed and confused. He looked like he was completely out of it. He was constantly remarked about pretty colors and other random things. Again, completely out of character for the wrestler. As stated by a few people at the time, Kanos took on the identity of a masked luchador wrestler similar to Sin Cara or Rey Mysterio. It looks like the idea of masked luchadors entering WWF rings was experimented with even then. His character came from the Caribbean islands just east of Mexico. It would make sense he would come from somewhere in the middle of North or South America. Some kept their hopes up about the match, just saying that it would be completely fine, nothing would go wrong. Maybe Kanos was doing it as a joke because of his attire. Well, that question was quickly answered as soon as Kanos got in the ring. Immediately in the blind rage, Kanos attacked Roddy Piper before the match had even started. No one from the crowd could have expected that. Kanos was immediately broken up by the ref and told to wait for the bell. Obviously, Kanos didn't listen because he was completely zooted out of his mind and just continued to assault Roddy. The ref broke him up again and was told to quit the bell ring. Kanos would not listen to the referee and just continued attacking Roddy Piper until he couldn't stand up. Picking up Kanos' attack, but in a blind fit of ref, knocking him out. Well, the ref did not stay down for a short period of time. In fact, he was down for over 30 minutes. This gave Kanos opportunity, even though the match still hadn't started yet, to just and was just laying waste to Roddy. Even though he did everything he could to her, as much as possible, just relentlessly went after him. Still, the bell didn't even sound yet, and Kanos' eyes, it was fair game for him. The crowd was not impressed by Kanos' attack. They were the complete opposite and told him to get out of the ring numerous times. It got way too far to the when we it got way too far when he actually listened to the crowd. He jumped in, attacking a lot inside of the ring, out of the crowd for seemingly no reason. The crowd was in a mass panic at this point as Kanos just went after whoever pleased. This caused a lot of people in the crowd to be injured. A few people were even escorted out of the arena by a stretcher as they were taken into medical care at the hospital. Kanos went into a relentless rage as he attacked a lot of people in the crowd before he was stopped by security. Kanos went way too far at this point. He started to attack security as they were actively trying to stop him from injuring more people. He just did a horrible thing, and yet this was deemed okay by his standards? The crowd at this point was not cheering for Kanos. They were instead cheering for the security to get rid of him from the venue. Cannot actually wrestled the WWF's own security during this. He was saying, "You people, me in middle school, you will all pay." Of course, the WWF security weren't the people who bullied him in middle school, and neither were the crowd. It was at this point determined that something was up with this event. Two wrestlers back to back who had no clue where they were at. One of them who fought nothing, and one of them who attacked a wrestler before the match even begun, as well as crowd security. Cannot seem screamed as loud as possible for no explainable reason, and a few minutes afterwards, he then all of a sudden plumped down onto the mat, just like Wakanda did earlier. The security did all the usual checkups before they came into the conclusion that he passed out. He was taken into an ambulance where he was going to receive medical care from the hospital, and then once he got out, he would be faced with a 3-year prison sentence for attacking the crowd and security. The crowd was happy that was the way the match turned out because of Canos' behavior. But some worried that these events were all linked to one another. This this could be something even worse than a simple coincidence. The crowd was sure that two wrestlers back to back having similar experiences was not just a weird coincidence. They were afraid it could be something much worse. The response to Grand Siege at this point had been mostly negative. The crowd at this point became concerned about this affecting their safety, as if no as so one of the wrestlers literally jumped into the crowd to attack people. This was not normal for an event, and this sure wasn't normal for an event of this scale, let alone one hosted by the WWF. The crowd was actively booing, and some were even threatening to leave the venue for their safety. It went from a great event to a complete disaster really quickly, and the WWF was in complete shambles while this happened. The ref eventually finally got back on his feet, completely dazed as he was trying to get back on his feet, and stepped in to assure the people that everything would be okay. "I'm so sorry about the things that have gone down so far. Please note that we organized this event. It was absolutely not our intention to cause harm to our wrestlers or our fans. This is quite possibly just a weird coincidence that two wrestlers have both acted like they were not sober. It may not seem like it to you now, but the point of WWF is to entertain you, and we always put your safety first, no matter the cost. I know it's very strange that this has happened to two wrestlers back to back, but we can assure you that this will is not the work of the WWF or any of its employees. So therefore, Grand Stage will continue and the show will go on. Everything is alright. Things going to be alright from here on out. Again, we are so sorry about everything that has happened thus far. Please stick around and enjoy this show. We have a lot more matches to come. Everyone's concerns died down when the next match started. Two well-known wrestlers who would make their entrances into the ring. First to enter the arena was Big John Studd. He was a powerhouse of a wrestler and a big man in every respect, ready for his competition, and would soon enter the ring, and then the crowd erupted when Hulk Hogan made his entrance. If you're unaware, Hulk Hogan is a very well-known WWF superstar back in the 80s. He was even WWF champion at the time before this event. He would be given the title on January 23rd, 1984, 2 or 3 months before the Grand Stage event would take place. He would hold on to it until he would lose the title to Andre the Giant at the main event on February 5th of that year. He would actually leave the WWF for WCW, where he eventually formed the NW for New World Order. The crowd was already looking forward to this next match because of how the previous two matches went down. This was a lot more lighthearted than the previous two matches, and both wrestlers were looking forward to the battle. All worry was thrown out of the window when it was time for the match, and the match began. Big John Studd looked confident as ever because of his opponent. He had a big grin on his face as if he was thinking it would be an easy win for him. Studd quickly got control and started to attack on Hulk Hogan. He started out by just slamming him into the turnbuckle and began him over and over again. It didn't work for him. Eventually, Hulk Hogan reversed the attack and was looking for a clothesline him into the turnbuckle, only for Studd to move out of the way and causing Hulk Hogan to run into it face first. Once again, Big John Studd was looking confident as Hulk Hogan was on the floor. He quickly gained the upper hand and started his attack. He'd be throwing Hulk Hogan into the ropes where Studd would either clothesline him or do some other wrestling move, punching him repeatedly on the floor or suplexing Hulk Hogan. At one point in the match, however, Big John Studd made a fatal mistake when he tried to jump off the top rope. He assumed that Hulk Hogan would stay down, allowing him to do a frog splash as he was in there. However, Hogan got back up before so Big John Studd landed on the mat, which resulted in him completely missing his target. At that point, Hulk Hogan gained control of the match. A look of determination filled his eyes as he was ready to lay waste to Big John Studd, and so his attack began. He was attacking Studd in every way he knew how at the time, such as dropkicking him, doing the iconic neckbreaker, and even doing a few jumps on the top rope. All of the successful landed jumps landed successfully into frog splashes. Big John Studd was trying to get on his feet, but Hogan put him to a submission to ensure he wouldn't get out. Studd tried desperately to get out of the hold, but to no avail. He then dragged himself to one of the ropes where he would reach for the bottom, and Hulk Hogan let go. But Hogan wasn't done yet with Big John Studd yet. He wanted to inflict more pain on him. He thought of every move that hurt. Eventually, Hulk Hogan threw him out of the ring, and Hogan himself would soon step out. Both of them would face a count from the ref as he was getting closer to the 10 count for disqualification. Big John Studd managed to counter one of Hogan's attacks that ran his face into the turnbuckle pole, who was on the floor as the ref got close to 10. Uncovered, he got back into the ring at an 8 count. And right at that moment, he was quickly attacked by Big John Studd, who would then regain control of the match. It was in the middle of the match at this point. Once again, confidence filled Big John Studd as he looked at Hulk Hogan who was immobilized on the floor. The big man lifted Hulk Hogan onto his head and slammed him onto the mat. He was feeling confident at this point that this was the end of the match and that he had defeated Hogan. So he got down on the floor and let Hogan slick up for the pin count. The ref then got onto the floor and began to count. It turns out that Hogan's still alive, still kicking. The crowd was cheering, especially this is the first good match it's seen since the first match with King Kong Bundy and Andre the Giant. Hogan was desperately trying to recover from the pain that was inflicted on him, but Studd wanted to make sure he would not recover. He began relentlessly attacking Hogan by repeatedly throwing him onto the ropes to either clothesline or suplex him, jumping from the top rope, this time landing successfully and even attacking Hogan while he was down on the floor. Studd felt fury in his eyes, and so Studd used Hulk Hogan's own weapon against him, a submission, and boy did he lock it in tight. He wanted to make sure Hogan wouldn't get out of it. The crowd was sure that this was the end of Hogan would have to tap out, but no, with pure strength, Hogan started to break out with a hole and lifted up Big John Studd. At this point, the crowd was going ballistic. While he was struggling to lift him, Studd was having trouble keeping him down. The struggle worked out in Hogan's favor, who eventually overcame the strength of Studd and eventually suplexed him, witnessed the example of pure strength. Hogan wanted to make sure that this would be the end of the match. He got ready to perform his finisher as Big John Studd struggled to get up. When Studd finally got his footing again, Hogan performed his finisher, and the crowd knew it was over. You just don't get out of Hogan's finisher easily like that. They were sure it was over. And so Hogan got ready to pin Big John Studd and right began to count. Studd, out of breath, breaks out of the cover. The crowd was shocked at what they just witnessed. They were so shocked Studd got off. But despite the beating he took so far, Studd was struggling to regain his footing. But once he did, Hogan wanted to show that he was back down on the ground. Just like that was a minute ago. But Studd performed an excellent count. He punched Hogan directly in the gut. The entire crowd lost it at this point. How did he recover so easily? Big John Studd looked at Hulk Hogan with fury in his eyes. He thought the match would be easy for him, but Hulk Hogan made it much harder for him. The rage took over as he started to severely attack Hogan as much as he could. The pure rage inside of him was taking control of him at this point, and was making sure Hogan would not be able to make a recovery this time. The crowd started to boo Studd for his actions, but Studd could care less. He looked at Hogan, who was lying on the floor, and then looked at the crowd, who was actively booing him for every single angle. He then began to get ready to perform his finisher to finish him, and Hulk Hogan's eyes was very noticeable. From Studd's perspective, he couldn't tell. He just assumed that he was struggling to get to his footing, so Studd got him in the hole and started performing his finisher to end the match. Turns out this was Hogan's plan the entire time. Studd hit him with his own finisher. The crowd erupted. They just witnessed a legendary reversal straight into a finisher. From that point forward, Studd was knocked out cold. He lied on the floor, not moving an inch, and therefore, it was over. Hulk Hogan won the match. The crowd could not contain the excitement. Hulkamania looked all around the venue, proud of what he accomplished. Big John Studd then got up. With Redis, he says, running cold. He was furious. He stomped out of the ring, and while Hogan continued to be proud of himself, it looked like it might have just been a coincidence, and the event was just going to go on normally. Excitement roared back to the venue, and the crowd's response was that became positive once again. Two instances beforehand were likely just to be a pure coincidence, and that it was just going to be a normal thing from here on out. The crowd was cheering, whistling, and a lot of other stuff was, which was soon to come. So far, it seemed that things were just as the WWF had planned. It seemed that everything was going to be alright, just as Vince had said earlier. That is, until the next match started. Pat Patterson was it until Pat Patterson was scheduled to take on Maxine Yamamoto for the next match. What is with all these unknowns? And why have I never even heard of them before? These unknowns do not even show up in the official rosters, so why are they even on here? Well, the likely reason is because they were all officially on the rosters at one point, then they were removed for reasons the WWE refuses to talk about. Yamamoto was in some sort of sumo wrestler like Yokozuna. He was a big man who would come out like a sumo like costume to similar to Yokozuna, with the character originating from Japan, as some sources say. This guy was even more crazy than the previous two, as he actively zooted out of his mind, and that's what the crowd was worried about. And you'd be seen spitting out random gibberish and literally doing the randomest things like mimicking animal noises. Usually, according to a few, he would enter the ring as if he was, as if it was a sumo arena. So this was completely out of character for the wrestler and only kicked up speculations amongst the crowd. Who began to think that these incidents were all linked to one another and were more than just a flat simple coincidence. Some people started to think that these events were systematic and not random. Something had to be up with this event. There was no way that this was just randomly, like there was nothing, someone or something had to be causing this. When the match began, for some odd reason, Yamamoto began beating his chest like an ape and let out an ape man like cry similar to Tarzan. He then got on the floor and spun around while kicking his feet and his sound which was blatantly curly from the three curly from the three. No, what? No, it's working.